My name is Olivia Harper. I'm 32 years old, and until one quiet autumn evening, I believed my marriage was built on complete honesty. I was wrong. My husband, Noah Bennett, and I had been married for 6 years. We lived in a peaceful neighborhood outside Portland, where life moved slowly enough to enjoy the little things. Every Saturday morning, Noah cooked breakfast while I watered the flowers along our front porch. On Sunday nights, we curled up on the couch with old movies and homemade popcorn. We didn't have children, although we had hoped for them for years. Each unsuccessful doctor's visit left a small crack in my heart, but Noah never blamed me. Whenever I felt broken, he squeezed my hand and said, "We're already enough for each other." Those words always gave me hope. Then, without warning, something changed. Noah still kissed me goodbye before work. He still sent thoughtful messages during the day. Yet sometimes I caught him staring into space with a sadness I couldn't explain. Other times, he smiled at his phone before locking the screen as soon as I entered the room. When I asked what was wrong, he simply answered, "Work has been stressful." I believed him. Until one rainy Thursday. I arrived home carrying groceries and found Noah sitting alone at the dining table. A cup of coffee sat untouched beside him. His face looked pale, and his eyes seemed tired. "What happened?" I asked. He stayed silent for several seconds before speaking. "I got a phone call today." "From who?" He looked down at the table. "Someone I haven't seen in years." I waited. Finally, he whispered, "Her name is Victoria." I recognized the name immediately. She was the woman he had dated before we met. Noah had mentioned her only once during our engagement and never spoke about her again. What did she want? I asked carefully. She recently moved back here after her divorce. There was sadness in his voice, but it didn't sound like love. It sounded like concern. "I feel sorry for her," he admitted. "So do I replied honestly. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Then Noah quietly added, "I invited her to dinner this weekend." I stared at him. "You invited your ex here?" He nodded. "I owe her more than you know." His answer only created more questions. That night, neither of us slept well. Around midnight, I noticed Noah wasn't in bed. I walked downstairs and found him sitting in the living room with an old wooden keepsake box resting on his lap. The moment he saw me, he closed it quickly. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Neither could I." Saturday arrived sooner than I wanted. When the doorbell rang, I forced myself to smile before opening it. Standing outside was a graceful woman with kind hazel eyes holding a homemade peach pie. "You must be Olivia," she said warmly. "I'm Victoria." She thanked me for inviting her inside and complimented our cozy home before Noah joined us. For a brief moment, the two of them simply smiled. There was no awkward hug. No romantic tension. Only quiet respect between two people who had once shared an important chapter of life. Dinner started comfortably enough. Victoria talked about starting over after her divorce, while Noah listened with genuine kindness. Later, they laughed about getting lost during a hiking trip years earlier and another funny memory from college. I smiled politely, but inside I felt strangely invisible. Those memories belonged to a version of my husband I had never known. While clearing the table together, Victoria looked at me and smiled. "You have a wonderful husband." "I know," I answered softly. She nodded. "I always hoped he'd find someone who truly appreciated him." Her sincerity surprised me. For the first time that evening, my fears began to fade. Then everything changed. Victoria glanced toward a shelf in the living room and suddenly froze. "You still kept it?" she asked quietly. Noah's expression changed instantly. The room fell silent. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Neither of them answered. A few minutes later, Victoria politely thanked us for dinner and left. That night, while Noah was upstairs, I noticed the same wooden keepsake box hidden behind several books. Curiosity overcame me. Inside rested an old photograph of Noah and Victoria smiling beneath bright autumn leaves. Beside it lay a silver key tied with a faded blue ribbon. Just then, footsteps echoed behind me. I turned and saw Noah standing silently in the doorway. My hands trembled as I held up the box. "What promise is this keeping alive?" I whispered. Noah lowered his eyes before sitting beside me. 12 years ago, he began quietly, my younger brother Liam was dying from a rare blood disorder. Doctors said he needed a bone marrow donor immediately. I listened without saying a word. Our entire family was tested, but nobody matched. Then Victoria volunteered, even though we had only been dating for a short time. I looked at him in disbelief. "She wasn't family." "I know," he replied. "But she turned out to be the perfect match." Tears filled his eyes. The surgery was painful, and her recovery took weeks. She never asked for money or recognition. She only asked me for one promise. He gently picked up the silver key. She said, "If life ever leaves me completely alone, promise you'll never pretend we were strangers." Suddenly everything made sense. The dinner, the wooden box, the old photograph. None of it was about unfinished love. It was about gratitude. "I should have told you years ago," Noah whispered. "I was afraid you'd misunderstand." I reached for his hand. I almost did. The following afternoon, Victoria invited me to a small cafe. "I owe you an apology," she said kindly. "Walking into your home wasn't easy for either of us." Before leaving, she handed me a folded letter. "He wrote this years ago," she explained. Near the end, one sentence caught my attention. "I hope the woman I marry someday will have a heart full of kindness." Victoria smiled. He found her. As we stood outside the cafe, her face suddenly turned pale. Before I could react, she collapsed. An ambulance rushed her to the hospital. There we learned the truth. Victoria had been quietly fighting cancer for months. She never wanted anyone's pity. Over the following weeks, Noah and I visited her often. We brought homemade meals, talked about ordinary things, and laughed whenever she felt strong enough. One evening she looked at both of us and smiled. "Thank you for letting me see that promises and love are not the same thing." A few weeks later, she passed away peacefully. At her memorial service, Noah's brother stood before everyone with tears in his eyes. "I wouldn't be alive without Victoria," he said. "Only then did I fully understand how one act of kindness had changed so many lives." Today, the little wooden box still sits on our bookshelf. I no longer see it as a reminder of my husband's past. I see it as a symbol of gratitude, sacrifice, and honesty. Looking back, I almost allowed fear to become stronger than trust. Instead, I learned that real love doesn't erase the people who helped shape our lives. It simply gives us the courage to honor them while continuing to choose each other every single day.